Today I'm showing you why dual fuel generators are better and all the pros and even a couple cons that happens to come with them. I'll also discuss a little bit about a tri-fuel generator and show you exactly why, the reason that they are better.
Dual fuel meaning two types of fuel like gasoline and propane, while tri-fuel adds an extra fuel which would normally be natural gas. Gas generators are typically easier as they don't need anything extra to run them as they have onboard fuel tanks. Tri-fuel and dual fuel generators will need an external fuel line and an external fuel source. Problems that you can find with this are either valves going bad or regulators going out at inopportune times. When gasoline also is more simpler to use, it is also more energy efficient as it provides more power per gallon, but the risks with gasoline involve spilling and also high flammability, and it also starts to deteriorate quickly. But with gasoline providing more energy, you would need almost 7 gallons of propane or a 30-pound tank to equal 5 gallons of gasoline. And propane is normally harder to source as you have to go to a fill service center or even an exchange center versus gas stations are typically no more than a couple miles away. Also, propane and natural gas generators typically have a shorter lifespan of about 10 or 15%, and when it comes to purchasing a dual fuel or tri-fuel generator, you'll normally pay at least $100 or $200 more for a similar type unit. But gasoline comes with its own problems like high fuel prices and also ethanol wreaking havoc on your fuel system, which you'll also have to purchase additional items like fuel conditioners and stabilizers to prevent corrosion inside the carburetor. This also is a dirtier fuel as it burns with more soot and carbon deposits versus propane is a much cleaner burning fuel. Even ask Hank, he'll tell you that it's the cleanest burning fuel around, keeping your valves much cleaner. Also, your oil stays cleaner with inside the engine, even though you should still follow proper oil maintenance guidelines. Spark plugs also burn cleaner, even though there is no proof that they last longer, but with propane and natural gas burning cleaner, this means less soot deposits on the spark arrestor, which means less servicing of that item. Propane can also be stored in much larger amounts as it lasts a lot longer, as opposed to gasoline. Sometimes limits can be 55 gallons or less depending on state and county codes. When it comes to natural gas, as long as there is a supply, this means for endless amounts of runtime, but you will get 30% less power per gallon, meaning you will burn more fuel to equal the same amount of energy that a gallon of gas can provide. Now, if you're like me, I like to use my generators while I am out RVing depending on conditions. This allows me to plug in directly to the onboard tanks, which I can expand up to a 40-pound tank. This means now I don't have to lug around an extra fuel source with me as I can just plug directly into the onboard system. Another benefit to having a propane generator is no jetting is required as you go up and down in altitude. This can be beneficial for people who travel like me. This also makes it easier as you just plug it into your onboard tanks again, and you don't have to worry about the jetting of it running rich or too lean as you change altitudes. However, you still will lose power as all generators lose engine power according to altitude at 3% per 1,000 feet. Now, I've done a lot of sound testing with generators, and I've never had any results that have shown a propane generator is quieter when running the same generator on gasoline or propane. But one of the biggest benefits of running propane is the amount of emissions and how much safer it is. With 70% less emissions, there is also less carbon monoxide, which means less CO2 coming out, which means it's safer to run than gasoline. Now, one of the biggest fail points in a generator is the carburetor. This is where most of the problems occur versus a tri-fuel or dual fuel. This is where it shines, having this option. A dual fuel or tri-fuel generator has its own input port and does not use the same one for gasoline. This allows it to completely bypass all the circuits in the carburetor with its own inlet, versus gasoline will flow into this port and then fill up the carburetor float bowl. You will have this solenoid that we will talk about in a minute, but there's a couple other things that are not needed in the carburetor as well. Like the choke, the inlet is already past this, and this is not needed for propane or natural gas. The same thing with the throttle plate. This stays wide open when using the propane or natural gas as it has its own load regulator. Another part of the dual fuel generator is typically a solenoid that can be operated either electronically or manually depending on the type of generator, and all this is a pin that will go up or down to let the fuel flow into the carburetor. I'll now show you where generators fail. As we take off the carburetor float bowl, this is where it'll expose your circuits. At the very bottom of this, if you happen to get old corroded gasoline or dirty fuel, this main jet can get plugged up, causing running issues. And one of the biggest problems is a small jet or a pilot jet, which is right here. This is a very small hole which can cause starting issues, idling issues, and more. I even have a video that shows how to actually clean this, which it's literally just one strand of a copper wire to go through this very tiny hole that can get plugged up with the smallest piece of debris. So even if your carburetor is completely corroded from ethanol fuels and not treating them properly, or the jets are plugged from dirty fuel, this is the best thing about having a dual fuel generator, is even then, propane or natural gas will still work when you need the generator the most.
All right, I hope you guys liked the video. I'll have a list of generators that I recommend down in the links below, and if you have any questions, there's a link called Ask Me, and I hope to see you in the next one.